severe thunderstorm threats across portions of the more central and northern part of the U.S. throughout today and tomorrow. Right now, we are looking at the severe weather outlook for today. We do have an enhanced risk for severe storms across portions of Nebraska and Kansas. Definitely, if you're in this area, you need to be weather aware today. You do have a pretty big risk, especially for wind in this type of area. You do have a significant chance for that wind, as you can see there. You definitely could see winds exceeding 80 miles per hour. So definitely be completely weather aware today. Bring anything inside that could be loose, because definitely there's going to be some pretty strong winds that are going to be moving through this type of area. But right now, we do have that slight risk for severe storms, of course, around that enhanced risk area and up here, even reaching into Wisconsin and Minnesota, as you can see. Definitely, if you're in this area too, you do have a chance for those severe storms. Not as much as the enhanced risk, but definitely you still need to be weather aware if you're in that slight risk for severe storms. Even in the Northeast, you also do have a slight risk for severe storms across portions of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and that's definitely, you need to be weather aware, of course, but definitely it's not going to be as intense. Storms there are not going to be as intense and down here in the Central Plains. Here's a tornado threat, and we did have an upgrade to a 5% chance for those tornadoes. Definitely, you could see a couple tornadoes possible within that general area. So definitely would be weather aware today, and make sure you do have that safety plan in place for these severe storms. And then finally, hail is up to golf ball size hail in that yellow shaded area, and up to quarter size hail is possible within the storms of the brown shaded areas there also. Now we can look at the models here, including a future simulated radar. Alright, so right now we are looking at the energy values that's going to be within the atmosphere. Now this is around 6 a.m. or this will be around 6 a.m. today. This has passed, but let's get to around this will be around 2 p.m. and you start to see this energy really starts to bubble up over portions of the northern Midwest, as you can see in those more purple colors, as indicating you may see 4,000 joules per kilogram, which is definitely a bunch of energy to get these storms rolling in that type of area. Let's get over here to around 3 p.m. and really you can just see this energy skyrocket as you get into the early afternoon hours. 5,141 joules per kilogram. That's a lot of energy that's going to be within the atmosphere, prompting the severe thunderstorm threats. You get to around, this will be around 5 p.m. and still that energy is skyrocketing. You're up to 5,300 joules per kilogram. So still a bunch of energy that's going to be within the atmosphere here. You start to get into the evening hours, and you see that those storms really take that energy away as they do move through that area. And you get to around 2 a.m. tomorrow, and that energy is pretty much all the way dissipated by the time you get to tomorrow at 6 a.m. Here's the capping inversion, and definitely let's get over to when these storms are going to move through. And once you get it to today around midday and you get into the early afternoon hours, there's really not much cap. If you have a bunch of cap, storms will not even develop, but there's not going to be much cap, as you can see. Mostly in these colors, that's where you have a bunch of capping inversion. But over here, especially in this storm-prone area, you don't have much capping inversion in this whole storm threat area. So definitely storms are going to be likely today. Of course, there's some pockets of cap, but that's not much cap to really pull back the storm development. As you can see, only 50 joules per kilogram of cap. So definitely not much cap in this type of area. Here's the surface-based lifted index. This is the lift. We need a lot of lift for these storms to develop. Let's get over to when these storms are supposed to fire, and you can see how much lift that's going to be within the atmosphere. You're getting into around the 13s, and that's definitely a lot of lift for these storms to develop, especially in that type of area. And there's still a bunch of lift over here where that enhanced risk for severe storms is also bulk shear. Bulk shear, you need a lot of shear for these tornadoes. Let's get to around when these storms are going to roll through. Definitely a lot of shear. You can definitely see a lot of shear over here in Minnesota, and that kind of dissipates once those storms roll through. And once those storms, well, those were from the storms that were going through this morning. However, you get to around the when these storms start to roll through, and there's definitely a lot of shear, especially with that 5% risk for tornadoes. You're getting to around that'll be around 41 knots. So definitely could see a couple tornadoes possible within those storms, and that shear keeps on going until you get into the early morning hours of tomorrow. So definitely these ingredients are going to be in place for these severe storms, especially storm-related helicity. This is the spin that's going to be within the atmosphere. You also need a lot of spin for this tornado threat. Let's get to around today afternoon. Definitely there's some helicity there. You're getting into the 300s and 400s. So definitely a lot of spin. So you could tell that these ingredients are really going to be in place, especially for that tornado threat up here in the northern Midwest, especially in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Let's go ahead and look at the future simulated radar. This is where you can tell where these storms are going to develop. So these are the early morning storms I was talking about. We did have a couple tornado warnings this morning. Those are the old storms that did develop back here in Montana and the Dakotas that rolled through until today at the early morning hours. Let's get to around 6 p.m. and you can really start to see these storms develop across portions of Nebraska and in Kansas. And also these tornadic storms up here in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Those roll through, as you can see, and they get really organized. As you can see, this could even turn into a squall line of storms, as you can see. But that definitely won't be impacting much of the U.S. May possibly impact some of Michigan, as you can see. They'll really not impact much of the U.S. as you get into tonight. And you can even see some more storm development by the time it gets around 3 a.m. tomorrow. Still some more storm development by the time you get to there. But they are starting to wind down. That severe threat is starting to wind down by the time you get to around 4 a.m. tonight. You get to around 6 a.m. tomorrow. And still, those storms are still rolling through. But that severe threat is starting to calm down. As you can see, those storms are really starting to dissipate. But there will be some more storm development tomorrow afternoon. So there'll be some more storms possible, as you can see. As you get to tomorrow's threat, and you do have a slight risk for severe storms across portions of the upper Midwest. And let's thought there's a load here. As you can see, we do have a slight risk for severe storms for portions of Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And we also do have another slight risk for those severe storms across portions of the Tornado Alley and the Missouri and Arkansas. So out of these two areas, you do have a possibility for severe storms throughout tomorrow. They shouldn't be as intense as today's storms. You do not have a tornado threat for tomorrow. However, you do have a wind threat and a hail threat. So definitely still be weather aware, but they're not going to be as intense as today's storms. If you did enjoy this video, I would recommend subscribing if you are interested in watching these daily weather forecasts or like live coverage, live streams. And make sure to share this video with any friends or family that potentially might be impacted by these severe storms. Anyways, stay safe.